and welcome to the broadcast today. We're talking about families and raising children. And thank you so much for being a part of the broadcast. We are live on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. And really appreciate that you've joined us today. So welcome, and thank you for being a part of the broadcast. What we are doing here is a question-answer time for questions that have been sent in, questions that we have gotten regarding raising or having marriage and families. And we dealt with marriage the first 2 days. You can go back and watch those on the forums, but we've been dealing with raising children and how to raise godly children. And I'm so excited that Melissa is here today. She's our second-born daughter, and excited that my precious wife, is here. We are going to have a wonderful time together. Just want to let you know that you can post your comments or post your questions in the comments. And we would love to answer those questions live if you put them in. And I'm talking to myself, But Frida, good to see you. Thank you so much for being a part of the broadcast. I'm seeing Melody on. Alex, good to see you there in beautiful Germany. Thank you guys for joining the broadcast. And we're gonna, as we go, I know a lot more people will be joining us. But if you have questions that are relevant to what we're talking about, please just put them in the comments, and we'll try to make sure that we cover those questions. Yes. I don't know who's on over there, but we have Miriam. Whoa. Okay, Miriam. Good to see you. I'm not very familiar with Instagram, but good. Praise God. I just want to continue with the verse. We've been looking at Proverbs 22 verse 6, where it says, "Train up a child in the way he should go or she should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it." And this is very, very important. When God entrusts children to us, it is an awesome opportunity, but it's also it's a great responsibility. Yeah. And doing that with the joy of the Lord and raising up world changers. It's an awesome opportunity, and it's a beautiful thing, but it can be a tremendous burden if it's not done the right way. And we've seen, you probably know the families that come with their children, and they can hardly visit anybody because they just take apart the people's houses. They come in and they dismantle everything, break everything, and the kids are all over the place, and the parents don't dare to visit people. It influences everything because their kids are just out of control. Then you probably know a few, you may not know many, at least in our generation, of people that just can go and visit anybody, and the kids are just so well behaved. If you're sitting in a restaurant, you can see it. You see, the restaurant people, they're seeing these kids like taking apart their whole place. And then there's these other families where the kids are sitting there well behaved, they're respectful, and they're enjoying their meal. The family's having a great time, and you just say, what's the difference? I mean, kids are kids, and is it luck? Is it what makes the difference? And there is a difference. And so the Bible tells us, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he won't depart from it. And today I promised that I would just talk a little bit about correcting children. And we all need correction. none of us like correction. Nobody likes correction. I don't know if you love it when your boss comes over and says you just did everything wrong and you need to change everything. We don't like correction. No, none of us like to be stopped by a policeman telling us that you've been driving too fast and get a ticket. Nobody likes correction, but correction is very important in life. If we don't have correction, we mess up. That's why David, when he was praying in Psalm 139, he said, God, search my heart and know my inmost thoughts and lead me to that way everlasting. Because he says, God, I need you. I need you to correct me. If you look at Psalm 23, it says, Lord, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Now, a rod and the staff for a shepherd was a correction tool. It wasn't just, waving a thing. They used the rod to actually grab. It had a hook on it. So if a sheep was like running away, they would grab the hind leg and pull it back. And that hurt. It hurt. They used that staff to, if a sheep was always misbehaving, they would hit it and correct it. So it was a correction tool. And David says in Psalm 23, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Just knowing, Lord, you're not going to let me get out of hand. You are my corrector. You keep me in check. I need that. I need accountability. And everybody in this world needs accountability. And when we don't have it, things go really, really wrong. And so I just want to share a few things about correction of children. And I'm not going to get too deep into it because I could share a lot of inside things that could help the people that are hungry and really want to learn. But the problem is that there's a lot of room for misunderstanding. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just hit it kind of at the surface level. And then we're going to go and I'm going to talk to Melissa and let her give her point of view of what her experience. But there's just, why should we correct our children? Why do children need correction? The first thing is just very, very simple. Psalm 29 verse 15 says, the rod of reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself is a shame to its mother. A child left to himself brings shame to his mother and father, of course. So the thing about it is that the reason we need to correct children is because they were born in sin. Psalm 51, David said, in sin my mother conceived me. I was born with a sinful nature. Now, I don't know about you, but I never had to take a course, 3 steps on how to lie, or the 3 most effective steps on how to steal the cookies from my mama. I never had to, I never had any training in, being dishonest, being manipulative, all these things. No training whatsoever. It was just there. And the thing is that we are born in sin. We have a sinful nature. The idea that people are born good and society makes them go bad is a lie of the devil. I'm sorry, but I'm just calling it as it is. People are not born good. They are born really bad. And the thing is look at a baby. A baby is born. And the first thing, it is like, it's all about me. If it's hungry, it cries. And it cries as if you're killing it until it gets food, If there's something wrong, a baby, it's all about me. It's very, extremely selfish. Of course, it has to be, and it needs those things. But right from the get-go, you see this attitude and these things that come out in a child that it didn't have training for, but it's there. So that's why correction is very important. you need to understand your children were not this perfect little thing, angel that was born. Your children were born in sin, just like you were. And we as parents have this awesome opportunity to help that child navigate, away from the control of sin in their lives to a place where they can live a responsible life and be successful for God. And it's a wonderful thing, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
it's a responsibility, a God-given responsibility that we have, and this is a subject that people avoid. They don't want to talk about it. Often, even in church, they don't talk about it. But the Bible mentions it, so therefore we have to step up to the plate and talk about this.
Yeah, and a lot of Christians would like to go through Proverbs and just scratch out. I just came up with 10 verses in Proverbs that are all about raising children, and probably 8 of them are about correcting a child. So a lot of Christians would like to go and scratch those verses out, and because society tells us, and this is the philosophy. I don't know which philosopher it was that kind of coined that we are inherently good and society makes us bad, which is completely illogical. Because if we were inherently good, then society would be good. It would be good. It's not society that's gone all evil. It's us that are evil, and we just need to understand that. So, but I don't want to get too much into that. But we are born with a sinful nature, and that's why correction is necessary for children. And when children are growing up, there's a lot of parents correct them for just mistakes. They spill the milk, and then parents slap their child. Why did you do that? The kid probably couldn't. That was an honest mistake. How can you tell where you need to correct and where you just need to kind of be patient with kids? Because we have to raise kids with a lot of love, with 99% of love or 95% of love and 5% correction. We need there has to be correction, but we need to really have that. If they're in that loving atmosphere, correction is okay. It's really fine. But the thing is, you have to understand when they're honest mistakes, you don't need to, put a kid in timeout because he spilled the milk or broke their shoe or something. These things happen. But when rebellion comes up, when you can sense rebellion, that is when you need to correct. That's where correction must be done. And if you don't, that child will go into all kinds of rebellion. Now, where do you correct people? Because some parents are, and I'm just touching on some of the things. You need to correct the children right where the things happen. If they're rebelling in a shopping center, you need to correct them right there. And find a way to correct them right when it's happening. Not hours later when they're like in a totally different situation. It needs to happen right when it's happening. And we, as a family, we found ways to be able to correct. I was able to correct my children right wherever we were in public, and they would start crying, and kids cry all the time. My kids knew exactly what was happening, but I would correct them right where we're happening. If we were visiting people in their house and they were misbehaving, I would correct them right there, and the kids would know it. They would stop the rebellion, and they would be well behaved. But it happened because I knew how to do it, and I'm gonna give you some pointers. Now, how do you correct your children? You correct your children with a lot of love. Every time I needed to really correct my children and punish them. Every time I punished them, I would take them in my arms, and I would hug them and hold them until they finished crying, sobbing. And then I would have a heart-to-heart talk with them. And I would say, my whichever child it was, I would say, I love you. I love you so much. I don't reject you, but I reject what you did. What you did was not in order. And I would explain to them what they did wrong. And it was very, very interesting. Many times after they had been completely rebellious, angry and shouting, and you could tell, this was like major rebellion. After I had punished them, those kids would stay by my side and just treat Daddy so good the rest of the day. Not because they were afraid of me, but it was like the child's way of saying thank you for showing me direction. Those were some of the most intimate times with my children, where after I had to correct them, and you'd think, they're all mad at me or whatever. No, they loved me even more after I really corrected them. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out. Do you have anything to add?
No, it's just really, you said it right. You always have to make sure it is done out of love, never out of anger.
Yes.
Yes.
That is very important.
It's a big point.
If you're angry, don't correct your children. Don't just back off. Let your spouse do it, or cool down, and so that you can do it in a loving way, and in a way that's intimate and full of love, because then it makes a difference in their lives. I want to recommend this book to you. It's by Dr. James Dobson. It's called Dare to Discipline. This book helped us a lot. It was recommended to me when Simone was pregnant with our first daughter by my own brother. And my brother said, Chris, I would recommend you read this book. And I read the book, and man, it helped me so much. So I want to challenge you. This book will give you real tools on how to discipline your children, how to correct your children in a very loving way. And if you follow this book, it will truly help you, right?
Yes.
It really gave us the foundation to raise a kid. So the Dare to Discipline by James Dobson, a tip for you if you to get wisdom on how to correct your children. But we have a couple of questions that we want to answer today, and I would just like to go over. Let me just greet a couple of people I'm seeing. Josh, good to see you. Thanks for joining us, for joining the broadcast. Oliver, thank you for joining us. God bless you. Alfred, thank you so much for being a part of it. Debela, God bless you. Debela is a man of God that I work with a lot in Ethiopia. We've preached together many meetings, and I thank God for you, Brother Debela. And so thank you guys for all of you. And then I'm seeing here, wow, Chris is on, Julia is on. Thank you guys for joining us. And yeah, I don't know. There's questions here. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think what we're gonna hit these questions, and then we're gonna come back to this. So just don't let me forget, please. All right, you have some questions.
Yes.
That we wanted to start to watch. Gladys, good to see you. God bless you.
Maybe just in line, with what you have been sharing. I just want to say real quick, my kids know, that I love them passionately. I love being a mom. So many people have such great career goals. They want to achieve success in their careers. My biggest dream, my biggest wish was always to get married and have kids. I wanted to be a mom, and I love that. I was never a mom that was happy when summer was over and the kids went back to school. There were sometimes, a couple of tears shed, because I love my kids home. I love the fellowship. I love them, and I love spending time with them. But there were two areas in particular that I was really strict with my girls. And number one was lying. That was something that would not fly in our household. And the next one was disrespect. That was really something that I was strict on, and that I was, that was not one day, they could get away with lying because it was a great day. I was really consistent in those areas. And kids need consistency. They need to know that this does not work at home. And my girls learned that. And therefore, it was rewarded with a great amount of trust. I trust my girls to a point. I know when they speak to me, when they tell me things, I know it is true. I know they're not lying to me. I know where their heart is, but they had to learn this. And, I was just reminded while you were sharing, one day my husband and I were out on a date, and we were in a restaurant sitting there, and a family came in, and they got their table right in the middle of the restaurant, and they had a little boy. I mean, he misbehaved to a point where everybody else in the restaurant was completely disturbed. This boy was just really out of control. I have to put it that way. And he would yell at his people. He would disrespect his parents. He was just, and they even would ask him, "What do you want to eat?" And he was like, "No, I'm not answering." And he was just out of control, and I couldn't believe it. And it got to a point where everybody got a little aggravated in the restaurant. And at one point, this little boy turned around, and he looked straight into my eyes, and I just looked at him like I would look at my girls. My girls know my look. When they were when they did something. Sometimes I really just had to look at them, and they were like, "Oh, okay, what I'm doing is wrong. I better shape up." And I looked at this boy the same way, and it was really funny to me because immediately his entire attitude changed, and he sat at his table. He said, "I'm so sorry. I would like the mac and cheese, please." And he continued being completely normal. And we talked about it. And I said, there's probably two scenarios in his school or wherever this boy is going. He knows he cannot behave like this. So people, that he didn't know, he respected and honored in that way, but he's with his own parents. He knew he could get away with it. And so therefore it is important that we as parents, take this role serious. The Bible talks about it. So therefore we have to take it to heart, and we have to establish those rules in our own home. And so with this said, still on the subject, the first question: how can I build a loving and relational bridge to my kids and still have boundaries and correction?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's two things there. Is that understanding godly leadership. In our family, there was one thing we both, Simone and I, when she was pregnant with Melody, our firstborn, we sat down, we talked together, and I said, we are not, because we had seen a lot of other families and how. As soon as children came, it was all about their children, and you could hardly have a conversation with people, because if their child would come, they would like stop, and just the child was everything. And so we said, listen, in our family, the child needs to fit in to our lives. We are not changing our lives for our children. We are leading, and they are gonna be following. And so we made a quality decision before we got any children that our children need to fit into our lives, into our calling, into what we're doing for God. So we're not gonna change everything for them. They will adjust to us, and so that made a big difference. And then the thing to understand is that you can have a very loving, intimate relationship with your kids, although you correct them. By correcting them, most people think you're gonna get things are gonna go bad between you, but it's exactly the opposite. By correcting, you get an even more intimate relationship. And that's like what I was saying before. Every time I would have to really correct my children, they were like, they wouldn't go from my side the rest of the day. It was like I was rewarded. You know, they would give me extra hugs and just want to be with daddy. And I was surprised, you know, because I thought, you know, they would be kind of distant because I was hard on them. But we would not tolerate rebellion. That never. Lying and rebellion, especially rebellion, because if we realized that the child had like this rebellious cry and stuff like that, we say, you come here right now. And we would make sure that we win the battle, that daddy and mommy are the winners in this situation. And when the children came to that place where they realized rebellion does not work, we had the greatest relationship. And the thing, by the way, most of your correction of children needs to happen from birth until they're 4 years old. That's where you lay the foundation of the child. If you don't get it there, it's very, very hard to make up for it afterwards. But if you lay that foundation, if the kids from 0 to 4 years old, that's where most of the correction happened. And you don't have to do big correction. You just need to make sure that they understand that, because you know, they just know mommy and daddy are boss and they mean what they say. They're not going to go back on their word. When they realize that, it's an easy cruising. And just our experience is this. We have 3 daughters. None of our daughters had teenage rebellion. Like, you know, teenage rebellion. Is that luck? Is that, you know, why do all 3 not have that? And my explanation is very clear. It's just we laid the foundation from when they were born until they were 4 years old. And then from there, it's just minor corrections. After they're 4 years old, it's minor corrections. They will always try their boundaries, but it's minor corrections. And we could visit anybody. We could go anywhere with our girls. And if we told them, don't touch that, they would not touch it. If we told them, hey, stay close to me, they would stay close to me. Now, sometimes, you know, we had to, our girls, especially, you know, they were very active. Sometimes they were very active, and we had to kind of hold their hand and say, you stay with me, especially this one right here.
Yeah.
At airports and stuff like that, I would have her in my iron grip, you know, holding her, because she would be all over the place and you'd lose track of her. So in order to keep her, I would always hold her hand, and she was like, ah. But
I wanted to explore.
Yes. And you know, it's just, you had in some cases, and other at home you always could. So but that's the thing. It is definitely, if you are if you lay the foundation and you don't tolerate rebellion, you lead your children, they will love you and they will respect you. And as I said, no teenage rebellion, not from any of them. Sure, they grew up and they got their own voice and they got their own thing. They were not suppressed, you know. We were not like holding them in a jail room, or they were their own. They're their own personalities. But it just didn't happen because rebellion was taken care of in the early years. And so I want to encourage you, raise your kids in the fear of the Lord. Don't cruise. Keep that car in gear all the time, because it's a hands-on thing, especially the early years. So
I would actually really like Melissa to weigh in on this, you know, to how she saw that from a child perspective, you know, but I want to share with you guys really quickly a story actually about Melissa when she was really little, you know, she really loved sweets, and she lost this over the years. Nowadays she doesn't, but when she was little, she loved sweets. And one day I remember, you know, we were living in Africa, and I was preparing a meal. And Melissa comes in, and she asked me if she can have some sweets just before the meal. And so I told her no, because I'm preparing dinner and we're eating in a couple of minutes. And she didn't like my answer at all. So she got really sassy with me, or she was trying to get really sassy with me. She put her hand in her hip, she put one finger up, and she started to scold me. And because she wanted to have those sweets. And I just turned around and I looked at her and I said, Melissa, you better put that finger down really, really quickly. And you know, in that second, she was always very quick thinking. She was always, you know, very, very smart. She had a whole change of attitude in a second. She started smiling and she left the room singing, "This little light of mine." She understood the consequence really quickly, what it means to be sassy and disrespectful to her mommy. So, but anyway, weigh in a little bit how you guys, you know, from your guys' perspective, how you saw the correction part of the.
Yeah. Let me just greet a couple of people. Becky, Franz, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Franciski, Jeremiah.
Simon.
Yeah, you just call them out.
Yeah, Simon, Spitzdiesel, Mark, Toby. Thank you guys for joining. It's awesome to see you guys.
Thank you guys
all
for
on
joining us. Then over here we have Chris, we have Seb, we have Melody, we have, I've already called out Julia.
Gladys, Lucas.
Yes. Here, Azib, Lucas, Gladys, and Alfred. Good to see you guys. Thank you so much for joining the broadcast. It is just awesome to see you guys, and thank you for the questions you've sent in. We have a couple of questions that have come in. We're going to address those a little later, but now I'm going to let Missy answer.
I think when it comes to discipline, from my perspective, like going back, looking back, I guess I should say, I really appreciate the way that they raised us, like knowing the things that are right and wrong. I think personally it helped me not only in life now, especially when I see how to treat people, how to honor other people, even not being disrespectful towards others, because they taught us not to disrespect them, but they also taught us not to disrespect other people. So even now in the workplace, it's helpful when, I'm in Bible school, so even just being around other people all the time, it helps me in almost every facet of my life. Mm-hmm. So I really appreciate the way that we were raised, that we were given clear boundaries, that we knew what was right and what wasn't right. And honestly, even to it really put a lot of benefit, I guess, in my relationship with the Lord as well, because I feel like even just the way that they raised us, it really for me reflects how the Lord is with me as well, because like they were saying, when they corrected me, it was always done in love, and so it wasn't like they would correct me and then they would be mad at me for like the rest of the day for whatever I did wrong. For me, it was always like I did something wrong and I would know it, I got corrected, and then after that it's like forgotten and forgiven. I didn't have to like live under this like, man, I really did something completely terrible, because I know like, okay, I did it wrong, I got corrected, and now we're just gonna move on. So it was more of like a moment of correction rather than like a life of correction or whatever, and I really see like that's really how the Lord is with us too. Once if we do something wrong and we ask for His forgiveness, He forgives us, and we can move on and draw closer to Him and really spend more time with Him as well. And so I see that's the same way that you guys raised me. So I feel like if you do it God's way, it's just like everything is better.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to address these? I don't see the questions. Do you guys? Or you
no,
want me?
I think we're right on it right now. Let's get that one about sheltered, being too sheltered. Yeah.
This question is: to what extent do you shelter your children? Because, you know, we talked a little bit about this yesterday in yesterday's broadcast, where we said, you know, we made a conscious decision not to send our kids into public school. We wanted to be the ones who are influencing our children. We want to form them. We want to shape them. And so this was important to us. And here is this a follow-up question: to what extent do you shelter your children?
Mm-hmm. And it just before, I want Missy to talk about that, but you know, people accuse our kind of raising of children that you guys are sheltering your kids way too much from the world. They're not going to be able to handle the world, and so you know, if you don't allow them to interact with the world, they won't be able to deal with the world, but the thing is that, because we really made a conscious decision, as I said yesterday, just to repeat that again, we would not send our children into public school because it's messed up. At least in America, it is completely messed up. And even the Christian schools that we experienced were also not much better than what was happening in the public schools. A little, but then so we decided to homeschool our kids, and so that we know what they're getting. And so the beginning, at first, our experience, we said, well, the elementary years, they need to be, we're going to form them. It cost us a lot of money. It was a sacrifice for us. So we said, okay, we're going to elementary. That's the foundational things. We want a good foundation laid. But then when we got to, you know, middle school and high school, we said, no, we're not sending them in there. And so we did the whole thing. And so the accusation could be, say, you guys just sheltered your kids from everything. They can't handle life. And so I would like Melissa to kind of take that and say, from her point of view, did you feel like we sheltered you too much?
I think something important to establish first is the definition of what sheltered actually is. So I think a lot of times when you say your children are sheltered, the first thing you really think is like they just have no knowledge or experience of any of the bad things in the world. They're just completely shielded from everything. And I think for me, what really made the difference, because I guess you could say we were quite sheltered as we were growing up. And then when I got to college, that was the first time I was in like a public school when I got my my degree. And so I think it's important to understand that, like, when they say sheltered, it means that I wasn't put in environments where I could have gotten to a place where it could put me in trouble, in the sense. So I was sheltered, but I was, how should I say this? So I think one of the big things too, as parents, and it might be easier for you guys to explain this than me, but as parents, they always made sure that we knew about a lot of the things that happen in the world. So it's not like we were completely oblivious to the problems of the world. We knew a lot of the things that happen, especially within, you know, what happens in our age group. So like throughout, you know, middle school and high school, I knew of a lot of the things that happen with, you know, drugs or alcohol, or you know, just some of the problems that my age group tends to stumble into these in that, you know, during high school, during middle school and stuff like that. So it's not like I was oblivious to it, but we were just never sent into environments where that temptation could arise. And for me, being sheltered, I guess you could say, from that, means that I feel like I got to a place where I was, when I did go to public school in college, I was at a place where I was mature enough to handle those things. Because when I was there, I did see a lot of people, even in my classes, where they came in and they were completely high. They were not getting any, it's like they had no cognition at the point. It was just a little bit distorted and stuff like that. Or you would hear stories of, you know, things that people did over the weekend and all of these things. So I saw it, but I feel like I was at a point where I was like, well, I don't even want that, because I knew what my goals were in life. I was at a point of maturity where I could handle that kind of thing. And for me, I personally, as a kid, I tended to be very influenced by people. So a lot of times the people I was around, I would tend to copy them. Even just like movies I watched and stuff like that, they kind of make fun of it, because every time I watched a movie, I wanted to be whatever it was they were in there. So if it was like a movie about, a dancer, I'd be like, I am going to be a dancer. So I just copied a lot of things, growing up. And so I feel if I was placed in those environments and I was, 8 hours a day in schools where they're talking about things like this, or they're trying to influence you to, take drugs or start smoking, things like that, I think I would have probably caved, because I don't feel like I was strong enough at the time, because I just let everything kind of influence me. So I came to a point when I was in college where I knew who I was. I knew who I was in Christ. I knew who I want to be as a person. And so it wasn't even a temptation to get into stuff like that, because I wasn't introduced to it when I was, super young.
Let me just here really quickly also put right away the follow-up question, Melissa, that since you're on this subject, maybe that you can answer here as well. How do you prepare your children for college and being on their own? So what would you say was a preparation for you to really make you college ready to step into that public environment?
I think as I was raised, really one of the biggest focuses that Mama and Daddy put on raising us was our relationship with the Lord. And I honestly think my relationship with God is what prepared me for college. Like I said, since we were sheltered and I hadn't seen a lot of the things that happen in the world, I heard about it a lot because my dad would warn me in advance and he would tell me about the things and how to handle if you get to that place. But then once I got to college, I saw it all. And so I think what really helped me in those moments to stand strong in who I am is my relationship with God. And when I was in college personally, there was so many things. Even teachers asked me to do, different students would talk to me about and stuff like that, that just went completely against my morals. There was even assignments that went 110% against what I stand for, against the morals that I have in my life. And so I actually had to stand up sometimes to teachers and be like, hey, I really can't do this assignment. Please give me something else. I'll do other work. I'll do like 3 times the work if you want me to, but this assignment I just can't do because it goes against what I believe. And so there was a lot of times I had to actually really, I don't know if fight is the right word, but stand up for the things that I believe and stand up and not really conform to culture and just realize, hey, I just can't do certain things because of who I am in Christ. And it's not always easy when literally everyone else is conforming to what the world is doing or conforming to what the assignment is. There was times where I was like, I feel like I'm the only one in this entire class who is even thinking like the same way as I was thinking. So a lot of even students would come against me, teachers would come against me. I did have a few friends here and there that kind of stuck by me, which was really nice, but it was difficult. It wasn't like an easy season, and I think the only real thing that I would say prepared me is my relationship with God had to be really, really strong. And I also will say that like my parents were always there when I had questions. I had a lot of teachers who were atheists who were trying to convert me, I guess, to atheism. They would have like discussions with me and stuff, ask me a lot of questions to plant doubts in my head. And so I had to go to my parents often and be like, hey, I didn't know the answer to this, what this atheist professor was saying, or this debate that they were trying to bring up. So I had to go to my parents a lot and be like, I don't know the answer. So having my parents there or having some sort of mentor who can help you, that you can go to, really helps in college as well. And honestly, preparing yourself, because if you're going to a public college, it's like extremely high chances that there's going to be someone who tries to talk you out of your Christianity, out of your faith. So just prepare yourself with some knowledge, just read some books on apologetics and stuff like that.
Yeah, and even if I remember correctly, one professor in particular, where you went up to and you said, I really cannot do this assignment because of where I stand morally. He looked at her, or he told her, there were many others before you who had said the same thing and they all caved. And he basically told her, you will cave too. And for Melissa, somewhat that was a challenge. And she was like, you're on. She didn't tell him that, or her personally, but to her, that how
good,
she took it. And she really rose to the occasion. And what was really so
amazing.
interesting is she gained incredible respect
Yes.
during that time from that professor and from the classmates around it. So you see, if you're doing things God's way, there will always be a reward, there will always be a blessing that follows that up. But maybe you want to chip in a little bit to preparing.
I want to say something with that too, is that a lot of times at the beginning, I will say it was a fight, but at the end, for example, that professor that my mom was mentioning, I had like the coolest relationship with him at the end. Like, we were friends. So it ended up being really cool, because I feel like, though maybe, like, in some ways they kind of didn't like me, but they couldn't, like, but then in the end they did like me. I also really tried as a student, to like work hard and stuff, and so I would a lot of times do like maybe double or triple the work in order to replace those assignments that I couldn't do, just to show I'm not trying to get out of work. So I feel like in the end there was a lot of times where the professors I had like the most trouble with, or that I had to stand up to the most, ended up becoming like some of my favorite professors, because we just became friends in the end. So it was fun.
Yeah. And Melissa was able to really make a mark, even with there was one professor that was a very active atheist and always making fun of Christians and working very, very hard to try to make kids fall. And it's the statistics are shocking. If you see a lot of kids that come out of high school that are from church, when they go to college, it's like 50% lose their faith, or even more than that, like 60%. I don't know the exact statistics, but it's amazing what how many fold. And I have friends myself that went to school, missionary kids, grew up in Christian families, were with me, in high school, in my early college days, and then they went on to these to some of these business. I have one friend that went to a business college in his 30s, fell away completely from God, changed in the way they act, and just it's if you're not prepared for that fight, that there's a major warfare going on. The devil is after your children. I mean, it doesn't matter whether they're young or whether they're grown up. The devil's after them, and so we have to fight for our kids.
And from a parenting perspective, maybe if I can just add, especially in that time, when they went to college, and, the question here was, how do you prepare your children for college? One thing that my husband was really strong on, he would always tell them, don't ever let a question be unanswered in your mind. You need to keep that communications with your children open. You need to make sure, in the same way as it is important in a marriage that you communicate with each other, it's equally important with your children. So they go there and they know they can always come and they can always ask you. There is always that open door. And he even gave them books. And he said, I want you to read this before you go to college. And he paid them. He said, if you read this book, I'm going to give you $10 or whatever, however that was. Obviously,
I paid them to read books.
The money was already very attractive, but that was all part of us training them, preparing them, getting them ready to face those challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that's a kosher way, but yeah.
It worked.
It worked.
And
they needed pocket money.
Add to that too, because in my case, I know not a lot of kids my age are like this, but for me, it's always very easy for me to come to my parents and ask them questions and ask for advice, because I know it's going to be solid advice. But I think a big part of that too was for me growing up, since I was a really small kid, my mom and dad always made it a point that if I come to them for something, they made time for me. They wouldn't just be like, oh, I'm too busy right now, let's talk about it later. Like, if I came with something in my life that was important to me, even if it didn't seem important to them or the big, picture, if it was not that big of a deal. For me, it was, and so I could go to them, and they made time for me since I was a really small kid. And so in college, when that time came, and I had those real questions that were really difficult for me sometimes, I knew that I could go to them, and they would listen, and they would help me with it. So I don't know if that's part of raising your kids correctly, but that was something I just realized.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you being an active part, and that's one thing that I did is I researched. I got tools. We had there's one Stand to Reason, and that's a good website to remember. Stand to Reason, because they have a college preparation course, how to it's like a boot camp to help kids prepare for college, and I bought that. It was like an audio and gave it to Melissa, and she listened to this, and it was all about atheism and the tactics that college is going to try to take out your faith. And it talked to different aspects, modern, some of the agendas that are going on, and so just preparing the kids for the fight that's ahead, because most kids come out of their Christian homes, and it's like they are taken out with the first hit, because they don't even know what hit them, because there's a massive campaign that's after the heart of people these days. So doing that and just seeing, I'm so proud of Missy, the way she stood, and even beyond my expectation. I didn't know what was coming. One course, she was supposed to be, the assignment was that she was supposed to draw nudes, and they had this nude actor that came into the classroom. They said, this is happening. This person's naked up there, and you're supposed to draw that person. And she said, I'm not doing that. And she was going to take a cut on her course. They said, if you don't do it, you're not going to get, we're going to give you a letter grade less or whatever. I don't know.
Well, it was actually, the assignment was worth 1/3 of my overall grade. So if I wouldn't do that assignment, my overall grade automatically would be a C, and I couldn't bring it higher than that, which I generally had good grades. So a C was really bad.
Yeah. Yes. So and she stood her ground. And did whatever was asked of her, and that's where she's built a good relationship with that professor. And in the end, she got the A, right, or
yeah,
B?
He actually ended up giving me an A because he let me replace the assignment with something else.
Imagine, So she stood up, and for what she felt was right, and God stood to her. And I just saw that, and I saw how she, the one professor that was trying to take was fighting with all these atheistic jokes about Christianity. At the end, she said, she tried to take away my faith, but I came out stronger. I came out stronger for Christ in the end after that course. So we were amazingly proud of the way Missy handled that. But it was a fight, and we stood to her. But the thing is this, our children are our responsibility. And I see my children as my responsibility until the day the Lord takes me home to be with Him. They can all stand and hold their own now. They are very responsible. They know life. They can stand up to the tests of time, and they all have a relationship with Christ. And that's the greatest reward, when you see your kids praying in the morning, taking time to seek the face of the Lord, and you see them walking with God. What greater reward is there in life than that? And I'm seeing my girls succeeding, doing incredible things for God, and that makes us very happy. But I just want to say this. I think this is very important. We are not super people. We are not, we're kind of telling you all of our victories here. There was a battle, and many times we didn't really know what to do, what is the right thing. I remember when our little girls, I remember when Melody was really little, she had this habit of always waking up, and then we said, well, she doesn't really need anything. She's just wanting attention. So we decided, okay, we're not going to go and go and help, just go and give her attention. She needs to sleep through the night. And man, she started crying, and we said, no, we're not going. And we had kind of made this decision, and she cried like she was being murdered, And I remember sitting there, and I said, man, this is so hard. I really feel like I really need to go and rescue this little girl. And but we did not know. A lot of times we did not know the right thing to do, and we would just try to do what we really felt the Word of God would tell us to do, and navigate through this life. So a lot of it was not in great victorious. We were not like the knights in shining armor or whatever, getting every victory. It was a lot of times just navigating, saying, God, please give us wisdom. We don't know what to do here. We need your help. And that's where God came in and made up for our weaknesses. And what we see in our daughters is not our doing. It's not because we're such great parents. It's not because we're such great people. It is because God is a great God.
Yes.
Just seeing our girls loving God the way they do, it's God. God has to touch our lives. It's a supernatural work of God. And so we don't sit here like we're some kind of a super parents or something. We are just very normal people, just living this life based on the Word of God, doing our best just to live by the Word of God and seeing the rewards of that. And so I just want to encourage you, no matter where you are in your walk with God, don't let things discourage you, but just know that God is there for you to help you raise up godly children. And if you let Him have the reins in your life, He will take them and make a beautiful thing out of your family. That's how He works. Amen. And so we rejoice in what God has done. This is not because we were so smart and so clever, right?
That would be a great place to close, and we need to get to. But
we have a couple of questions here. Just Frage zu Partnerschaft.
This one is for marriage, and this one I think is for children.
Okay, I'm gonna let you read it because it's German.
Do you want to do the
one for
parenting?
children? Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
Das Kind möchte. Oh, okay. He's asking what because if a child goes to the mom and the mom says no, but then goes to the dad and the dad says yes, how do you deal with things like that?
Well, in some ways, I'm going to say, you're going to start. You probably have a lot to say to that. In some ways, we all try to navigate the way of least resistance. So if you need something and you know that we're probably going to get a yes from mama and maybe a no from dad, you ask mama. And if you think that you're going to get a no from mom, but you might get a yes from dad, he's more of a pushover, then you go to dad. So that's a very natural thing that even in our family, if I wanted something, mom was the place to go for me, because I could get a yes from mom much quicker than from dad. So that's the one thing. But when you, I think, why don't you explain about how it's important that you're in unity?
That would have been exactly my point. It always depends, on what it is. If they're just trying to get ice cream out of us, or they know which one would much rather say yes. That I find is not a big deal. In fact, our youngest daughter, she had my husband wrapped around her little finger. I mean, she just would need to come and say "Daddy" and look at him, and he melts, and she got everything, even to the point where the bigger sisters would send her to get what they wanted,
It
because
was all in the strategy.
yes, because they know the little one she will get if she asks. So it always depends, on the situation, and sometimes I laughed and I was like, really? You had to say yes. I just said no. And that's okay. It always doesn't have to be so serious. But in the major points, it is very important that you stand as a unity, as parents, and that you agree, that you don't discuss stuff out like this in front of the children, that you do with your husband or with your wife on a separate basis. But there is places where you really need to stand united, but I think the children will know that. They know that, they know in which fronts they cannot cross, and other points, it's okay. It's if it's just a cute little thing, that's it's not such a big deal. I would say. Yes,
and that's a very important point. When you're correcting, you can't fight each other. If children see parents in disagreement, all correction is like worthless. It's really worthless. So you have to stand united. And so if Simone would correct our girls, even when I did not agree with what she was doing, I would back her, just because I knew those kids need to see that we are not manipulatable. We're not, and so we tried to do our best.
And then he talked afterwards to me and said, "Hey, why did you do it that way? Don't you think it would be a smarter way or a better way, to do it another way?" And mostly he was right, and stuff. But we really try to not,
try to protect each other and say, okay, we're gonna back each other, even if we think they're not right now. And of course, in our family, it was never an issue that there's violence where kids are being hurt, abused. It was always a correction for us. Was always very loving and well thought through. So yes.
And I think too, from the kids' perspective, when it came to the bigger stuff, like you guys are saying, we already knew that if Mama says no, Daddy's going to say no too. So we never actually tried to go to like the other parent. If either one of them had said no, we didn't go to the other one to see if we could get a yes from them, because we knew that it would be the exact same answer. It was like not worth our time. So it's kind of like something that you catch on to as a kid. When they're in unity, it's just like, okay, don't even try, because it's just going to be the same answer.
Yeah. Praise God. I think we'll...
There was one more question.
There's one more question over here.
That one was on marriage, so we wanted to cover the kids one first. Do you want to...
Okay. No, that's the same thing as before.
Really?
These are both the same. Yeah. They were both on Facebook and on here.
But he had two different questions. Can I see it real quick?
Okay. Oh, yeah. The other one was on marriage. Praise God.
Oh, okay. God. Yes. He's touching on the subject of how men and women are different, and either some have habits that might drive the other one crazy, and stuff like this, and he wants to know what we think about when especially sometimes women think this, or I will get him to the place where he needs to be. I will.
Yeah.
How do you say that in English?
Change them.
Yeah, I'll change them. I'll get them.
I
will form them or whatever.
Yes.
Train them. Yeah, that's a big problem, especially when I think this is mostly in the sight of when you're getting to know somebody. Now, this is not raising children anymore. This is like relationships. But when a young lady sees a guy that is like half-heartedly following God, and she says, well, I'm going to get him to get saved, or he's not saved at all. And you just say, well, I'll get him. He'll love me so much that he'll do what I want him to do. And that those things just don't work. So it's that the problem that you have in almost in all of those things, and now this is trying to get into a different subject, is that people will always pull you down to their level. So if you are like, you're serving God, you love God, and then you start having a relationship with somebody who's nominal or not born again at all, they will pull you down to their level. You won't pull them up. It's just like a pastor had an illustration. This lady came into his office and she said, yeah, I'm interested in this guy, but he's not saved. He said, well, don't break it, don't do this. And she said, no, but I'm gonna get him saved. I'm praying and I'm gonna do everything it takes to get him saved. And then the pastor said, okay, listen, just do this. So he said, listen, just climb up on the chair and on the table. And he said, so you say you're gonna be able to get that boyfriend, whoever, to come up to your level. She says, yes. And he says, okay. And he took her hand and he said, okay, now pull me up to your level. And she started pulling and he just yanked like this, and the lady came down to the ground from the table, and of course jumped, landed on the ground. And he said to the lady, listen, that's exactly what's going to happen to you. That guy is going to pull you down to his level, because it's much easier to pull you down than it is to pull somebody up. So when it comes to relationships, I'm answering the question, right?
Yes, he meant it a little bit from a different way, but it's good. Keep on going.
Yeah.
I'll
When you think that you can get somebody, that you're gonna be able to form that person just the way you like it. Listen, it's hard enough to form yourself. You can't form other people, and if you can't accept a person the way they are, don't ever marry them. Just don't do it. Don't marry a fixer-upper, because there can be exceptions if they're wholeheartedly following God, and they just are sincere, but they're just not making it right now, but they're very sincere and they're following God, but they're burning for God, but they're learning. That would be a different thing. But the thing is that generally don't do it, because they will not change. A lot of times in marriage, the only thing that you can change is you yourself. That's it.
Very good. That's very good. But just to get to this question real quick, because I think he meant a little bit more from the perspective, in marriage, if let's say the husband lets his socks lay around all over the house, and you say, oh, I'll get him to where he needs to. He will learn the way I want it, and stuff like this. Yeah, I just want to say from a woman's perspective, ladies, it is not your place, it is not your job to change your husband. But it is your job to pray for your husband and to really cheer him on. There is ways of doing that, and you don't do that by, listen, this is my house and this is my rules and you better do them. You don't get anything done like this. But you pray for your husband. If it is a bigger thing that is really bugging you, pray for that, and specifically that the Lord will open his eyes and the Lord will change that. At least that's how I would love to, if there's an area in this that Chris really prays about, that for the Lord to reveal this for me, because it is not our place as women to change our husbands.
Yes. Yeah. So it works the other way too. So anyway, thank you guys. I think we have really every day we're going a little longer, and but it's been really wonderful, and I think I pray that it has been a blessing to you. We're not, as I said before, we're not these people that are full of all this wisdom and these experts. We're just very normal people trying to do things according to the Word of God, and seeing the fruit that comes from that has been a tremendous blessing in every aspect of our lives. And we are so grateful to God, because He's the one that works the fruit in our lives in every area. And so we give Him the glory. And I pray that the Lord will give you strength and give you that stamina just to listen. His word works. Read Proverbs and take it seriously. Those verses are not there just for fun, and they're not there for just those people back then. They are for us today. And they work. They're wisdom. I read Proverbs almost every day because Proverbs is 31 chapters. If you read one chapter per day, you can read it once a month. And I've been doing that for years. And there's just so much riches that God has given us to live by. And even if you build your business according to Proverbs, you will succeed. I guarantee it. God has given us a riches, a wealth in His Word. And so I want to encourage you just to take advantage of God's Word. It is wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, every one of you. And thank you so much. I don't know, I kind of lost track. Okpazor, thank you so much for being a part of it. Barbar, good to see you. And thank you all for each one of your comments and being on. And tomorrow will be our last session on this subject. And I invite you to join us. I think we still have a couple of questions left over that we would like to take time to answer. And if you want to, you can send us your questions at info@CitaLife.org. That way we can also take that into account. Tomorrow is our last day on this subject, so don't miss it. Tomorrow, same time. God bless you. Thank you for being a part of the broadcast.